Have you ever noticed how exhausting life becomes when you're constantly chasing it? We run after happiness, approval, peace, as if they're prizes waiting at the finish line. We tell ourselves that once we reach a certain goal, or find the right person, or finally get it together, we'll rest. But peace doesn't work that way. The harder you run, the further it seems to drift. What if the peace you're searching for isn't ahead of you at all? What if it's been following you, quietly waiting for you to stop? We spend years believing that motion equals progress, that we must keep pushing, planning, and proving. But Buddhist philosophy teaches something different. The more you chase life, the more it hides. True peace isn't found through control, it appears through surrender. Think of the most beautiful moments you've experienced. They weren't forced, were they? They arrived gently, when you were still enough to notice them. Life isn't asking you to chase harder, it's asking you to trust deeper. In this video, we'll explore the art of letting go, how surrender creates strength, how stillness reveals clarity, and how life begins to move toward you the moment you stop chasing it. So take a deep breath. Let the weight of striving fall from your shoulders. This isn't a race to reach peace. It's an invitation to return to it. Let's begin. Lesson 1. The illusion of control. We all love the feeling of being in control. It gives us comfort, a sense that life is predictable, manageable, and secure. We plan every detail, organize every hour, and prepare for every possibility, hoping that order will keep chaos away. But beneath that control often hides something quieter. Fear. Fear that if we loosen our grip, everything will fall apart. Fear that without our constant effort, life might forget us. Yet the truth is that control doesn't create peace. It creates pressure. The more we try to command every outcome, the more resistance we create. Have you ever tried to hold water in your hands? The tighter you squeeze, the more it escapes through your fingers. Life works the same way. The tighter you hold it, the faster peace slips away. You don't lose control because you're weak. You lose control because you're human, because life was never designed to obey every plan we make. In Buddhist philosophy, this struggle for control is seen as one of the main sources of suffering, the grasping mind. The Buddha taught that clinging to what we want and resisting what we don't creates an endless cycle of tension. Control is just a modern form of that same clinging. We call it productivity, planning, or discipline. But underneath, it's often anxiety wearing a responsible face. It's the silent belief that peace can only come when everything outside us behaves the way we want. But peace was never an external achievement. It's an inner state that begins the moment we stop fighting what already is. When you release the illusion of control, you don't lose direction. You gain flow. You still act with purpose, but without the heaviness of forcing every result. You start to trust the intelligence of life itself, the same intelligence that makes the seasons change, the same rhythm that turns night into day. You realize that life doesn't need your permission to work. It just needs your participation. So the next time you feel that urge to control, to fix, to hurry, to predict, pause for a breath. Ask yourself, am I guiding life or am I gripping it? Because true strength isn't found in mastering every outcome. It's found in learning how to let life unfold. When you loosen your grip, what's meant for you doesn't slip away. It finally has space to arrive. Lesson 2. The invisible weight of worry. There's a kind of heaviness most of us carry, not in our hands, not on our backs, but in our minds. It's the weight of what might happen, the argument that hasn't occurred, the failure that hasn't arrived, the storm that only exists inside imagination. We call it worry, but in truth, worry is nothing more than the mind rehearsing pain that may never come. Think about it. How many nights have you lost sleep over things that turned out fine? How many moments have you spent preparing for disasters that never appeared? We don't realize it, but much of our suffering isn't caused by reality. It's caused by the stories we keep replaying about what could go wrong. We live inside imagined scenes, reacting to problems that don't yet exist. And each thought we feed adds another stone to the invisible backpack we carry through the day. Buddhist philosophy calls this dukkha, the suffering born not from life itself, but from the mind's attachment to fear. The Buddha taught that the mind is a storyteller. It constantly writes scripts about the future, trying to protect us from uncertainty. But here's the paradox. The mind's attempt to keep us safe often becomes the very thing that steals our peace. Worry doesn't prepare you for tomorrow. It robs you of today. It's like walking through life holding an umbrella, waiting for a storm that never comes. The truth is, anxiety doesn't live in the present moment. It lives in projection. Right now, in this single breath, you are safe. Right now, life is still. The moment you return your awareness to this moment, the feeling of air in your lungs, the rhythm of your heart, the story dissolves. The future loses its grip. The storm fades because it was never real to begin with. When you learn to let go of imagined fears, you discover something profound. Peace was never missing. It was just buried under too many what-ifs. Each time you pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this happening right now, or is it just a thought? You reclaim a piece of your freedom. You stop living in mental rehearsals and return to the truth of this very moment, where life is happening and where peace quietly waits. So take a breath. Feel the weight on your shoulders. Then imagine setting it down. The storm you feared is only a story, and the peace you've been searching for has been here all along, waiting in the calm between your thoughts. Lesson 3: The Garden of the Mind. Your mind is not a battlefield, it's a garden, and every thought that passes through it is a seed. Some seeds grow into flowers, calm, compassion, clarity. Others grow into weeds, fear, anger, doubt. The soil doesn't decide which one to nurture. It simply grows whatever you plant most often. This is the quiet power of awareness. The realization that you are not the victim of your thoughts. You are the gardener of them. Each morning, you stand at the edge of this garden, holding a watering can. You may not realize it, but with every word you speak, every story you repeat to yourself, you are watering something. When you feed worry, it grows roots. When you feed gratitude, it blooms. And when you stop paying attention, the weeds of fear and judgment begin to take over, not because you chose them, but because you stopped choosing at all. Buddhist philosophy reminds us that mindfulness is not about controlling what grows. It's about noticing what you're nourishing. The Buddha said, "What we think, we become." If you tell yourself that life is hard, you'll find hardship everywhere. If you remind yourself that life is unfolding with intelligence and balance, you'll begin to see that truth reflected in even the smallest moments. The garden mirrors the gardener, always. When you start tending to your mind with care, you notice how much of your suffering was never caused by life itself, but by the thoughts you allowed to grow wild. The mind left untended becomes overgrown with old fears, comparisons, and doubts. But the moment you return to awareness, when you pause and simply ask, what am I watering right now? Fear or awareness? Everything shifts. That single question pulls you back from unconscious repetition into conscious creation. You don't need to uproot every negative thought. You simply stop watering it. Redirect your attention toward calm, patience, and trust. Over time, the weeds starve and new life begins to bloom. Slowly, gently, you'll see that peace was never something you had to find. It was something you had to cultivate. So take a breath, step into your inner garden, look around. What's been growing there lately? Are you feeding chaos or calm? Remember, your mind is listening to everything you repeat, every day, every moment. Choose what you water wisely. Because what you nurture today becomes the landscape of your tomorrow. Lesson 4: The strength hidden in surrender. There comes a moment when you realize that fighting life no longer works. You've pushed, planned, and resisted for so long that even your strength begins to ache. You've tried to bend life into shape, to make every situation obey your will, yet somehow peace keeps slipping further away. It's in that exhaustion that a quiet truth begins to whisper. Surrender isn't giving up. It's finally learning how to stop fighting life. We've been taught that control is power, that letting go is weakness. But in reality, it takes far greater strength to release than to grip. To surrender means you trust life enough to move with it, not against it. It's an act of courage disguised as softness. You stop demanding that every wave calm itself before you step into the ocean. Instead, you step in knowing you were never meant to command the sea, only to learn how to float. In Buddhist philosophy, surrender is not passivity. It's participation with presence. It means acting with clarity, then releasing the outcome. It means giving your full heart to this moment, and then bowing to what unfolds next. The wise don't try to control the current. They move in rhythm with it. They know that the river already knows where it's going. When you begin to surrender, something shifts inside you. The constant tension, the invisible strain of trying to predict and perfect everything, starts to melt. You start breathing again. Your body loosens. The mind, once loud with resistance, begins to quiet. You discover that life has always had its own intelligence. The same force that opens flowers and carries clouds across the sky is the same force guiding your path. If only you stop trying to drag it where you think it should go. Surrender is strength because it trusts the unseen. It's the strength to say, I don't know how this will unfold, but I trust that it will. It's the power of stillness in a world addicted to control. And when you find that stillness, life begins to cooperate with you. Opportunities appear without force. The right people arrive at the right time. Even challenges begin to make sense, not as punishments, but as teachers. So take a breath. Soften your grip on how life should be, and allow it to show you what it already is. You don't need to master every wave. You just need to float, to trust, and to remember that peace was never something you had to chase, only something you had to allow. Because in the quiet act of surrender, you don't lose your power, you finally discover where it lives. Lesson 5. Returning to the only safe place. There is a place that never changes, even when everything around you do. It isn't far away or hidden somewhere in the distance. It's right here, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this very moment. And yet, it's the one place we forget to visit. Most of the time, our minds aren't here at all. They are running ahead into the future, replaying fears, imagining what could go wrong, or trying to solve problems that haven't even appeared. But the truth is simple. Anxiety belongs to the future, while peace belongs only to now. The mind is a restless traveler. It pulls us into stories that don't exist, conversations that haven't happened, failures that never occurred, endings that may never come. It builds entire worlds of worry and then convinces us to live inside them. That is what anxiety truly is, the imagination rehearsing pain that doesn't exist. But presence is different. Presence is stepping off that stage and realizing the play was never real to begin with. It's the quiet awareness that this moment, this breath, is enough. Buddhist philosophy teaches that peace isn't something we create. It's something we return to. When fear begins to rise and your thoughts start racing ahead, pause for a moment and ask yourself, where is my mind right now? You'll often find that it's somewhere in the future, trying to control what hasn't even arrived. That's the moment to bring it home, gently, through a single conscious breath. Your breath is a compass. Every inhale brings you back. Every exhale releases what doesn't belong. As you breathe in, whisper inwardly, here. As you breathe out, whisper, now. Do this a few times until your heart begins to soften and your awareness returns to the present. In that rhythm, the world becomes simple again. Because right now, in this breath, you are safe. Not because everything in your life is perfect, but because you've stopped running into the future. The present moment is not a place you arrive at. It's the home you've always had. You don't have to fix everything. You only have to be awake for what's here. And when you truly return to now, you realize that peace never left. It was always waiting beneath the noise, inside the stillness of this very breath. Lesson 6. The false burden of control. There's a kind of exhaustion that runs deeper than physical tiredness. It's the fatigue that comes from trying to control everything. You can feel it in your shoulders, in your breath, in the constant hum of tension that never really goes away. It's the weight of always needing things to go a certain way, of holding life by the throat, afraid that if you loosen your grip, everything will fall apart. But that weight you're carrying isn't responsibility, it's illusion. It's the ego's attempt to replace trust with tension. We like to believe control is power, but most of the time, it's fear dressed as safety. We plan every detail, predict every outcome, and prepare for every possible failure. Not because it guarantees peace, but because we're terrified of uncertainty. Yet uncertainty is not our enemy. It's life itself, unfolding one moment at a time, asking us to participate, not dominate. Trying to control life is like trying to hold the steering wheel in a storm, convinced that your grip alone can move the wind. You can't. The truth is, you can't hold the steering wheel and surrender at the same time. You must choose one, tension or trust. In Buddhist thought, this endless grasping comes from attachment, the belief that happiness depends on things going our way. The Buddha described it as the root of suffering. Control becomes a kind of armor, a way to hide from the unknown. But that armor is heavy, and it doesn't protect you. It only keeps you separate from the natural flow of life. When you cling too tightly, you stop listening. You stop seeing the beauty of what's happening right now. You become so focused on steering the road that you forget to feel the wind, to notice the journey, to trust that the road itself knows where it's leading. Letting go of control doesn't mean becoming careless or passive. It means replacing tension with trust. It means doing your part, showing up with sincerity, and then allowing life to do the rest. It's a quiet agreement between your heart and existence. I will act with integrity, and I will trust the unfolding. And when you finally release that false burden, you notice something miraculous. The world doesn't collapse. The sun still rises, the seasons still turn, and your life begins to move with a rhythm that feels lighter, freer, and infinitely more peaceful. So take a deep breath and notice where you're holding too tightly. To plans, to people, to perfection. Loosen your grip, even slightly, and feel the relief that follows. Life doesn't need your constant supervision. It needs your quiet cooperation. Because real peace doesn't come from control. It begins the moment you remember you were never supposed to carry it all alone. Lesson 7. Growth begins where fear ends. Every time you choose fear, your world becomes smaller. You start taking shorter steps, speaking softer words, dreaming safer dreams. Fear has a quiet way of closing in around you. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It seeps in like fog, slowly blurring the edges of your courage. You convince yourself you're being careful, but what you're really doing is shrinking. When fear contracts your life, growth can't breathe. We often mistake comfort for peace, but they're not the same. Comfort protects you from risk, but it also hides you from growth. The truth is, everything alive must stretch to evolve, and stretching is never comfortable. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It has to break open before it can rise. It must surrender its old shape to reach the sunlight. That breaking isn't the end. It's the beginning of becoming. The same is true for you. When you release the fear that keeps you small, you don't fall apart. You unfold. Buddhist philosophy teaches that fear arises from attachment, from clinging to what is known and resisting the unknown. But the unknown is where life creates new possibilities. Every transformation begins in uncertainty. The seed doesn't know what it will become when it cracks. It simply trusts the pull of light. That's the faith of growth, to let go of what's familiar so something deeper can emerge. Each time you let go of fear, you create room for something wiser to grow in its place. Confidence, resilience, freedom. Letting go isn't weakness. It's a quiet act of bravery. It's saying, I may not know what happens next, but I trust myself to meet it. It's choosing expansion over contraction, truth over safety, becoming over pretending. The moment you stop negotiating with fear and start moving through it, life meets you with open hands. Opportunities appear, not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped looking at life through the small window of what's safe and started walking toward what's possible. So ask yourself gently, what small fear am I ready to release so I can finally grow? Maybe it's the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of starting over, or simply the fear of letting life move without knowing where it will lead. Whatever it is, remember, fear only controls what you refuse to face. The moment you turn toward it with awareness, it begins to fade. And as it fades, you'll feel something extraordinary. Space. Space to breathe, space to grow, space to become the version of yourself that fear kept waiting at the edge of your own life. Lesson 8. Flow. The natural state of life. Life has its own rhythm. You can hear it in the waves, see it in the seasons, feel it in the rise and fall of your own breath. It moves without asking for permission, without needing to be managed or mastered. Yet somewhere along the way, we forgot how to trust that rhythm. We began believing that if we don't control everything, if we don't push, plan, and interfere, life will fall apart. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the very act of interference is what keeps us from experiencing the effortless harmony already present in the flow of life? The mind loves to stir the water. It thinks movement equals progress, so it keeps analyzing, worrying, adjusting, trying to perfect the flow. But like a stream filled with mud, the more you stir it, the cloudier it becomes. The moment you stop meddling, the moment you let the current settle, clarity returns on its own. Life works in exactly the same way. When you stop overthinking every moment, when you stop forcing outcomes and trying to predict every turn, a deeper intelligence begins to move through you. It's quiet, but it's wise. It doesn't rush, but it never falters. It's life's natural rhythm, and it's always been there, beneath the noise. Buddhist philosophy calls this state non-interference. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting without distortion. It's living from a place of trust instead of tension. You still show up, you still make choices, but you don't let fear guide the steering wheel. You act, then release. You move, then allow. Then, the Zen masters often compared this to a leaf floating on a river. It moves perfectly, not because it knows the way, but because it doesn't resist the current. The leaf doesn't demand that the river take a specific turn. It simply flows, and somehow it always ends up exactly where it needs to be. When you begin to live this way, life starts to surprise you. The people you need show up at the right moment. The answers appear not through overthinking, but through stillness. You start realizing that the universe was never against you. It was only waiting for you to stop fighting it. The obstacles that once seemed immovable begin to shift, not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped pushing altogether. In the silence of non-interference, you begin to see that life has its own intelligence, an intelligence that's far greater than any plan the mind can create. But trusting that flow requires humility. It asks you to admit that you don't always know the way, and that's okay. It asks you to believe that there's a wisdom larger than your fear, a timing beyond your impatience. When you stop forcing things, you make room for grace to move. And grace always moves quietly, through small coincidences, gentle nudges, and perfect timing that no amount of planning could ever replicate. The moment you step back, life steps forward. So when you find yourself restless or uncertain, pause and ask, am I stirring the water again? Then let the current settle. Feel your breath move in and out. That's life's rhythm reminding you it already knows how to flow. You don't need to rush, you don't need to chase, and you don't need to interfere. Just as the stream clears itself when the mud settles, your path becomes clear when your mind becomes still. Life doesn't need your constant control. It needs your quiet cooperation. You are not separate from its rhythm. You are part of it. The moment you align with that truth, you stop struggling to swim upstream and begin moving effortlessly with the current. That's when peace arises, not as a reward, but as your natural state. Because the truth is, life has always known how to move. It was never waiting for your control. It was waiting for your trust. Lesson 9. The comfort trap. Comfort is seductive. It whispers promises of safety, of stability, of being untouched by life's storms. It tells you that if you just stay where things feel familiar, you'll be protected. But comfort has a quiet secret. It doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you stagnant. It slowly builds walls around your potential and calls them peace. What feels secure today can easily become the cage that limits tomorrow. True peace heals. False comfort hides. Many people confuse the two. Peace comes from alignment, from living truthfully, even when it's difficult. Comfort, on the other hand, comes from avoidance, from staying where you don't have to face yourself. It's easy to remain in jobs that don't inspire us, in relationships that no longer grow us, in routines that keep us numb, all under the illusion of safety. But deep down, you know the difference. Peace feels light. Comfort feels heavy. Peace expands your heart. Comfort shrinks it. Buddhist wisdom teaches that attachment to comfort is one of the most subtle forms of suffering. We cling to the known because the unknown feels risky, but in doing so, we resist life's natural movement. Just like water, life flows toward growth, and anything that doesn't move eventually becomes stagnant. The Buddha taught that discomfort is not a punishment, it's the signal that transformation is near. When you feel restless, uncertain, or stretched, it isn't because something is wrong. It's because something inside you is ready to evolve. Think of a seed buried beneath the earth. For a time, it feels safe, held by the soil, protected from the wind. But if the seed never breaks open, it never becomes a tree. Growth requires the cracking of comfort. The breaking may look like loss, change, or chaos, but it's the only way new life can emerge. The same is true for you. The moment you stop chasing comfort and start following truth, even when it's uncomfortable, something extraordinary begins to grow. Real peace doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from walking through it with awareness. It's choosing what's right over what's easy, what's true over what's familiar. It's saying, I will not settle for stillness that comes from fear. I will seek the calm that comes from courage. Every act of honesty, every boundary you set, every step you take toward growth may shake your comfort, but it strengthens your freedom. So ask yourself, where in your life are you mistaking comfort for peace? Is it in the routines that dull your passion, the relationships that keep you small, or the dreams you keep postponing because they feel risky? Growth begins the moment you stop hiding behind what feels safe and start leaning into what feels true. You don't have to leap all at once. Just take one brave step toward discomfort, and you'll notice life meeting you halfway. Because the truth is, nothing alive stays comfortable for long. The seed breaks, the bud opens, the river moves, and you are no different. You are meant to expand, to evolve, to rise beyond the edges of what you already know. Comfort may keep you warm for a while, but it will never set you free. Growth will. And the moment you choose growth over comfort, you step back into the flow of life, alive, awake, and beautifully unafraid. Lesson 10. Choosing what truly matters. There comes a moment in every life when you realize that peace doesn't come from being liked, admired, or understood. It comes from being aligned. You can please everyone and still feel restless inside. You can achieve everything you set out to do and still feel a quiet emptiness you can't name. That's because peace isn't born from approval. It's born from truth. It begins the moment you stop living for how things look and start living for how they feel inside your soul. The modern world constantly invites us to perform. We chase validation in subtle ways, through success, status, praise, or belonging. And on the surface, it looks harmless. But slowly, we begin to trade authenticity for acceptance. We silence our intuition to maintain harmony, and in doing so, we drift further from ourselves. Every time you say yes when your heart means no, every time you pretend you're fine when you're not, every time you choose convenience over truth, you chip away at your own inner peace. Buddhist philosophy reminds us that true peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of alignment. Living in alignment means your actions reflect your values, your words match your truth, and your choices honor your deeper knowing, even when it's uncomfortable. It means you stop moving through life trying to be everything to everyone and start asking, what truly matters to me? Because when you live from that question, you begin to walk a quieter, more powerful path, one guided not by noise, but by clarity. This path isn't always easy. Sometimes alignment means letting go of things you once prayed for. It means outgrowing spaces that no longer nourish your growth. It means setting boundaries with love and walking away from what no longer feels alive. It means disappointing others instead of betraying yourself. And though that can feel heavy at first, it's the kind of weight that strengthens you, the weight of honesty, not pretense. Every act of alignment may feel like loss on the surface, but deep down, it's liberation. You're not losing peace, you're returning to it. Think of a compass. No matter how many times it's shaken or turned, the needle always finds its way back to north. That's what alignment does for the soul. Even when life spins you in circles, your inner truth quietly points your home. But to follow it, you must stop chasing external direction. You must trust the stillness within more than the noise around you. When you start making decisions from that place, not from fear, not from pressure, but from peace, your life begins to take a new shape. It stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like prayer. Buddhism teaches that awakening isn't something that happens to you. It's something that happens through you. It's the courage to live with integrity in a world that rewards imitation. It's choosing awareness over autopilot, stillness over distraction, and authenticity over approval. You're not here to stay small. You're here to awaken, to remember that your worth was never something to earn, but something to embody. And each time you choose what matters over what pleases, you take one step closer to that awakening. When you begin living in alignment, life starts to mirror it back to you. Your relationships become calmer, your decisions clearer, your energy lighter. You stop feeling like you're constantly chasing something because you finally understand that nothing external can fill what's missing internally. Approval may bring temporary comfort, but alignment brings lasting peace. So ask yourself gently, what truly matters to me? Is it the noise of being seen, or the quiet of being real? Is it the comfort of fitting in, or the freedom of living truthfully? Begin by choosing one small thing each day that feels true, even if it's difficult. Speak the honest word, take the slower path, protect your peace instead of your image. These small acts of truth will begin to weave a new kind of life, one rooted in stillness, honesty, and trust. Peace doesn't ask you to become perfect. It only asks you to stop pretending. When you live from alignment, you no longer have to chase approval, because your soul begins to approve of itself. And in that self-approval, you'll find something far greater than success or praise. You'll find freedom, the freedom of being whole, the freedom of being true, and the quiet joy of finally living a life that feels like your own. Freedom doesn't come from holding tighter. It comes from the quiet courage to let go. We spend so much energy trying to control outcomes, protect what we love, and fix what we fear might break. But true peace begins when you realize you don't have to carry it all. Letting go isn't giving up. It's allowing life to move through you instead of against you. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders soften. Feel the air enter and leave your body without effort. This is what release feels like. Simple, natural, alive. Maybe there's something you've been gripping too tightly, a thought, a fear, or an expectation. You don't have to force it away, just allow it to loosen. Trust that what's meant for you will remain, and what's not will drift away quietly, like leaves carried by the current. The Buddha taught that peace is what appears when clinging ends. You don't have to fix or understand everything. You only need to stop fighting the present moment. In that stillness, life begins to unfold with its own wisdom. Not because you made it happen, but because you finally stopped standing in its way. May you trust life enough to let it move through you, because when you stop chasing, life finally knows where to find you. If this message brought you even a moment of calm, share it with someone who may need the same reminder. Subscribe not for more noise, but to walk this shared path of stillness, awareness, and quiet awakening together.